Welcome to another chapter of The Smiling Ghost. Today I'm going to narrate chapters 21 and 22. I hope you enjoy it. Chapter 24, By Candlelight. Tomas's heart was still pounding when, a few hours later, he parked his car in front of Andreas's apartment building. The night was chilly, London shrouded in a light mist that cast an almost poetic glow over the streetlights. He climbed slowly, each step an invitation to dive into something new, unknown, dangerous, but irresistible. Upon arriving, he took a deep breath before knocking on the door. It opened almost immediately, revealing Andreas. He looked different, his usual stiff expression gone. He wore a simple white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his forearms and dark jeans. His blonde hair was a bit messy, and his blue eyes reflected a mixture of anxiety and tenderness. "I thought you weren't coming," he said, his voice low, filled with relief. "I thought you weren't coming," Tomas replied with a shy smile. Andreas opened the door wider and invited him in. The apartment was lit only by candles strategically placed around the living room and on the table. The aroma of herbs and fresh sauce mingled with the soft sound of jazz coming from a small record player in the corner. Table was set with 2 plates, wine glasses, and an already open bottle. Tomas looked around in surprise. "You prepared all this?" Andreas rubbed his hand awkwardly over the back of his neck. "I'm no chef, but I wanted it to be special." He gestured to a chair and Tomas sat. The dish in front of him was simple, fresh pasta with a rustic tomato sauce and basil, but attention to detail was evident. There was also a small, "No need to impress, you know," Tomas said, amused. "I'm already impressed just by being here." Andreas smiled slightly, pouring wine for them both. "I didn't want you to feel like just another one." The words hung between them. Tomas stared at him, feeling heat rise in his chest. This was a man who used to hide behind coldness, but now he was naked and vulnerable. They began to eat dinner. Conversation flowed naturally, without tension. Tomas told funny stories from his college days, talked about his grandmother and the times he spent Christmas alone with her, the little traditions they invented together. Andreas listened attentively, as if every word were precious. "You speak of your grandmother with such affection," Andreas commented, swirling the wine in his glass. "It's beautiful." "She's all I ever had," Tomas replied, smiling with a hint of melancholy. "If it weren't for her, I think I would have lost myself in the world." Andreas was silent for a few seconds. Then he confessed, "I've never been able to be that close to my family. There were always too many expectations. Everything I did seemed inadequate. Always pressured to be the perfect man. Perfect fiancé. Perfect son-in-law. Exemplary teacher." He took a deep breath. "But never myself." Tomas watched him, feeling his heart tighten. "And who are you really, Andreas?" Question hung in the air. Andreas looked away, fixing his eyes on the flickering candle flame. "Someone who's afraid," he murmured. "Afraid of loss, of rejection, of disappointment." Tomas reached across the table and lightly touched his. The simple gesture was like a spark. "You don't have to be perfect for me," he said, his voice firm but sweet. "I just want you to be real." Andreas's eyes lit up. He squeezed Tomas's hand as if reaching for an anchor. Dinner continued with laughter, small confidences, and lingering glances. The wine lightened the atmosphere, dissolving barriers. When the improvised dessert, some fresh fruit, was served, Tomas could no longer hide how enchanted he was by this side of Andreas that few knew. Then the music grew softer. They stood up almost simultaneously to carry the dishes to the kitchen. In the small space, their bodies brushed against each other, and for a moment they were face to face, too close. I didn't plan the space well," Andreas said, smiling nervously. Tomas chuckled softly but didn't back away. "Maybe the space is perfect." Silence enveloped them. The sound of their breathing filled the room. until Andreas, overcome with desire, cupped Tomas's face and kissed him. Unlike the stolen kiss at school, this one was slow, deep, and full of tenderness. Tomas's hands slid to the back of his neck, pulling him closer. It was as if time had stopped, as if only the two of them existed there, finally free to feel. When they pulled away, Andreas rested his forehead against his and whispered, "I don't want to run away anymore." Tomas smiled, almost moved. "Then stay. Stay with me, truly." Andreas hugged him tightly, as if he never wanted to let go. And that night, without masks, without excuses, they both surrendered not only to desire, but to the certainty that the love that was born there was already impossible to deny. But outside, the world did not sleep. And the shadows that watched them silently would begin to approach, sooner than they could imagine. Chapter 22, Confessions by the Sea. The night had unfolded in caresses, kisses, and whispers. For the first time, Andreas held nothing back. And Tomas felt it. Every gesture, every look, every touch was charged with surrender. But there was something still unsaid, a weight that hung in the air. The next morning, they decided to go out. The beach was just a few minutes from the hotel. They walked side by side on the damp sand, shoes in hand, the cool seawater lapping at their feet. The wind blew strong, but not enough to erase the calm they felt. There, far from school, far from prying eyes, they were just two men discovering what it meant to allow themselves to love. Andreas walked in silence, as if seeking courage in the waves crashing before them. Tomas noticed. He turned his head and said, "You're acting strange." His voice was low, almost carried by the wind. Andreas stopped, staring at the horizon. The cloudy sky, the smell of the sea, everything seemed to align for that moment. He took a deep breath. "I don't want to lie to you," he said finally. Tomas turned completely around, his heart pounding. "Then don't lie." The Englishman ran a hand through his hair nervously. The salt from the breeze clung to his skin, but the greater discomfort came from within. I'm still engaged to Olivia." He closed his eyes for a moment, as if it were difficult to even pronounce the name. "I didn't end anything. I didn't have the courage." Tomas felt his chest tighten. Part of him already knew, but hearing it out loud was different. It was a reality check. "So, what are we doing here?" he asked, his voice trembling. "What am I? An escape?" "No." Andreas replied immediately, gripping his arm firmly. His blue eyes shone not with anger but with despair. "It's not that, Tomas. You don't understand. I've never felt anything like this since Tom. I thought I'd never be able to." His voice trailed off, but he continued, "Love anyone. Until you came along." Silence fell for a few seconds. Tomas tried to process, torn between his racing heart and the pain of uncertainty. "And her," he said, almost in a whisper. "You're going to marry her and me?" Andreas lowered his head. The words came out like a confession. "I don't love her like I should. I never have. I accepted the engagement because it felt right, because my family expected it of me, because I wanted to be the perfect man everyone imagined. But when I'm with you, when I kiss you, when I wake up next to you..." He raised his eyes and looked at Tomas seriously. "It's the first time in years that I feel like I'm not hiding." Tomas felt the tears welling up, but he didn't let them fall. "Then why are you still with her?" he asked firmly. Question hung between them like a blow. Andreas was slow to answer. He looked out at the sea, his shoulders heavy, his breathing labored. "Because I'm afraid," he confessed, his voice breaking. "Afraid of disappointing, of facing my family, of admitting what I feel and losing everything." Tomas took a step back, away from the hand that still held his arm. "And don't you realize you're already losing me?" His voice broke, but there was strength in it. "I won't be your shadow, Andreas. I won't live in your lie." The wind blew harder, as if carrying the words to the Englishman's heart. He ran to Tomas, grabbed his face, forcing him to look him in the eyes. "I know. "And that's why I'm here," he murmured, his eyes brimming with tears. "I can't deny it anymore. I can't deny you." And before Tomas could respond, Andreas kissed him. An intense, desperate kiss, filled with all the words he didn't have the courage to say. Tomas responded, but not without tears, 'cause loving Andreas was also hurting himself. When they pulled away, breathing heavily, Tomas rested his forehead against his. "If you're going to be with me, I want all of you. Not half." Andreas closed his eyes and whispered, like a promise made to the sea and the wind. "Then it will be whole. Somehow, I will find the courage." They stood there, embraced, their feet sinking into the cold sand, feeling that their love was greater than any fear, but they also knew that the path ahead would be full of obstacles. Thank you for watching this far. Please, I know it's getting a lot of views, but no one is subscribing. Please subscribe to the channel to help me. It's very important. Share and like so you don't miss any episodes.